Let's start with a scenario. You have recovered a mobile device. In this case, we will say that it is an iOS device. And you have recovered a full file system image of the device. You parse the image in several of your open source tools, and maybe you even parse it through some of your paid tools, but you do not have enough information for what you need, and you decide that you might want to start looking at the applications manually and performing manual analysis. You notice that an application called Words with Friends was opened last on the device, but you do not find anything about this app in your tools. After looking into it a little more, you find out that none of your tools actually support this application. You want to examine the application yourself and see if there could be anything within this app that you did not notice earlier. You want to get the exact same version of the app to test on your test device, as features can change and data may be stored in different places, or they may be encoded differently, and it is just really necessary to get the same version of the application between your test devices. Now, we have a few options to try and do this. Just as a preface, iOS devices use a package management file known as IPA files. IPA stands for iOS App Store Package, and typically these files are downloaded from an app store in the back end. They are used to install the app, and then they are discarded right after the app is installed. So we can actually install these files manually. However, we actually need to source the IPA files from somewhere, and there's also a few ways to do this. We can try to download the IPA files from an online source, but we do need to try and make sure that the sources are secure and the IPA file has not been modified. Most applications just cannot be found through these online archives, and if we do find the application, a lot of the times we just can't find the version that we're looking for. So here are a few different sources to get some pre-packaged IPA files. However, a lot of the time we will not be able to find the files that we need on these websites. So just going over them, there is decrypt.day and the Decrypted App Store, and these will allow you to search for packages and then download them, and they will decrypt them on their side and give you an IPA file. And then there is the IPA App Store, which contains a few popular IPA files. And then there is plenty of bundles which are hosted on the Internet Archive, and it's just bundles that people have put together on tens of thousands of IPA files, and this will contain some of the more historic and older versions of IPA files. And if you are looking for something pretty old, there is a good chance it might be hosted in one of these databases. Now, if the device is running the most recent version of the application, then you may just be able to download the app right from the App Store onto your test device. And this is very convenient, as we do not need to get an actual IPA file or do anything not normal. We can just download it from the App Store. But the issue with this is that many apps are updated quite frequently, and we are not always looking for the latest version, but if we are, this is super convenient. Now, the best solution is just to get the IPA file from the device which you acquired your evidence from, and then we will repackage the actual raw application into an IPA, and then we can transfer it over to our new test device and then install it there. So to do that, we will need to find the application bundle from within our file system. Each application has an associated bundle folder and a data folder within the device. The bundles are just folders which contain information used to set up the application. It is essentially the raw application, and this folder is not typically modified after the application is set up. The data folders instead contain user data and application generated data. Files within this folder may be modified by the application during runtime. So say you log in, maybe your credentials would be stored in this file, so that every time you open the app, it will tell the service to go and log in with your credential. So to find these folders, as you can see, each one has a different ID, and the bundle is located at private var containers bundle application and then the ID. In the data folder is at private var mobile containers data application and then the ID. So a unique ID ties each application to its bundle folder and its data folder, and these are two different IDs. To create an IPA, we first need to actually find the bundle folder of our target application. To do this, I will normally open the application state.db file. The full path to this is private/var/mobile/library/frontboard/application state.db. We can scroll through and find the package name which we're looking for within the KVS debug table, and then we can open the blob in a plist viewer. If you have not worked with database files or plist files before, I suggest you take a look at our plist analysis course and our database analysis course, but essentially our bundle paths and our data paths will be contained within this file. When we find our bundle ID, we can just head over to the bundle within our Explorer. So to actually start creating the IPA, we will begin by creating an empty folder called payload somewhere outside of our file system. So I normally suggest just putting this right on our desktop, as we are just going to copy some stuff into here, and then once we're done with it, we can delete this folder. So once we have the empty folder, we will copy the contents of the bundle that was from our file system extraction, and we will copy it into our new payload folder. We will then create a zip archive out of the entire folder. So once this is finished, we should have a file called payload.zip, and then we want to rename it to whatever we want really, and we will make sure the extension is going to be a .ipa file now. And once this is complete, we have our final IPA file and we can upload this to our test device. Now note that this does take into account compatibility from the application. So say you copied this over from an iPhone X. It may be compatible with an iPhone 7. However, there is a chance that the application will decide that, well, this version is only packaged for the iPhone X and it won't work for the 7. Therefore, it will not allow you to install it onto the 7. Now, there are some ways to try to bypass this and get around it. However, having a compatible model can be very handy. Once we have the IPA file, we can go ahead and put it onto our test device. There are several ways to do this, so we will just cover one in this video. Basically, IPA files must be signed before they're installed. So the signing process can be done manually with a developer Apple ID. However, most of us do not have a developer Apple ID, and it is just easier and faster to sign the files with a third-party tool. Sideloadly is one of the most popular third-party tools which we can use to sign IPA files, and we will provide our Apple ID credentials with which Sideloadly will install the app onto the device over a USB connection. So after downloading and opening the tool, we will click on the IPA icon and we will point it to our extracted IPA. We will then type in an Apple ID within the Apple account section, and once we click start, it may ask for the password. And note that the Apple ID which you use to sign the package does not necessarily need to be the same as the Apple ID which is on our test device. As I mentioned before, we do also need to consider the iOS version and supported device compatibility. If at all possible, try to use the same model of device in the same iOS version. However, we do realize that not every lab has the same capability to just keep stock of every single iOS device and every iOS version. If you do not have a test device and cannot get a compatible device, it may be possible to bypass the compatibility issue using some of the advanced options within Sideloadly. While using the tool, I do face a lot of issues quite often. I also use this program to sideload jailbreaking applications such as Uncover, and at first the PC will recognize the Uncover IPA as a virus and it will delete it after you click start and you try to install it. So you would need to disable antivirus in Windows Defender in this case, while sideloading jailbreak applications, or else you may run into similar issues. If you get an error saying that you have reached your limit, then this is because our free developer account can only have 3 sideloaded applications at one time, and we will want to just delete one from the device and then we can try again. There are plenty of other errors which may occur, but if you find them, just Google them, and most of the time they've been discussed online and they can be fixed easily. When successful, we can now find the application on our test device and begin testing. To learn more about how we test applications and search for artifacts, I suggest you take a look at our mobile analysis methodology course.